Haymarket affair in 1886. Now what happened was that there was a protest demanding the 8-hour workday, and there were people all over the country, hundreds of thousands of workers in 1886, refused to work on May 1st, had a one-day strike demanding an 8-hour workday. And the demonstration took place on May 1st in Chicago, and it was a mostly peaceful demonstration. The next day, there was another demonstration that happened, and the following day on May 3rd, there was another demonstration, even bigger, miners, other workers, and the police opened fire into the crowd, and 2 protesters were killed. And there was a lot of anger among the people in response to that. There were some leaflets that were put up by radical anarchists and others saying they wanted revenge, etc. It's not clear who made those leaflets or whatever. And then the next day, there was another demonstration on May 4th, and at that demonstration, a bomb was thrown at the police, and a police officer was killed by a bomb. And then the police started shooting. There was a lot of death. I believe 7 people died on that day. And they arrested 8 anarchist labor leaders for setting that bomb, allegedly. Now, only one individual could have been proven, that was this guy Louis Ling, was ever proven to have ever even made a bomb before. Louis Ling apparently, there was some evidence he had done something and possibly made a bomb before. But these other guys, they were convicted for their words. It was because they hadn't told people not to bomb the police. It was that with their agitation, they had stirred up people, essentially. And they were convicted in a trial, and they were sentenced to death. Now, Louis Ling, the only guy who'd ever made a bomb, the only one that could ever prove it ever had anything to do with any bomb, he actually blew himself up in his prison cell. He smuggled a stick of dynamite into the prison cell and put it in his mouth like a cigar and blew himself up because he didn't want to be killed by the state. The others were hung, and it was a cause that caused a huge amount of outrage because they were essentially executed for their words. There was no evidence that they had ever set this bomb. There was no evidence that they had somehow been involved in a plot. It was just that with their advocacy, with their political rhetoric, they had inspired this bomb to possibly take place. Now, there were some others who were given clemency and were not sentenced to death and eventually got a pardon. But the May 1st International Workers' Day, which is celebrated around the world as Labor Day, comes from this struggle in Chicago for the one-day strike in 1886 that led to the subsequent events that led to the execution of August Spies, Adolf Fischer, Albert R. Parsons, and George Engel, and Louis Ling, who prevented his execution by committing suicide ahead of time. And these individuals are referred to as the Haymarket Martyrs. And at the time, many people considered their execution to be outrageous. Albert Parsons, he was a veteran of the Civil War. He'd actually fought on the Confederate side. But after the Civil War, he'd had a change of heart, and he actually married a woman of color named Lucy Parsons, who's also buried here. But Albert Parsons and others, their conviction angered many abolitionists because, basically they argued that if, just a few years prior to this, in the 1860s, when slavery was still going on, you could have executed an abolitionist for what they had said. They were killed for their words, essentially. There was no evidence that they had actually planted this bomb or done it. Now, people don't know who actually made the bomb. It could have been a provocateur. It could have been an angry worker who was angry about the workers who'd been shot down beforehand. We don't really know. But their execution was considered a great miscarriage of justice, and it was all over the world. People became sympathizers, and that's why we have International Workers' Day up to this day, because of the 1886. What's interesting is they're all Germans, because back then Germans were considered to be a very radical ethnic group. Many of them had come to the United States because of the 1848 German Revolution, and there were a lot of German immigrants that were leading these rebellions. August Willich was a Marxist who became a general in the Union Army. Joseph Wedemeyer was another Marxist, a close associate of Karl Marx, who ended up leading the Union Army during the Civil War. And the first kind of Marxists and radicals in America were Germans who had fled in 1848. So much so that at this time, German Americans were associated with radicalism. And then later it became Irish Americans, Fenians, who were associated with radicalism. Then it became Eastern Europeans and Italians, you know, and it kind of shows there's kind of I guess you could call it continuity of a new wave of immigrants are considered to be radicals and dangerous. You know, now there's a lot of feeling that Latinos are dangerous, right? And we need to be afraid of them. And that, you know, and that often the argument was that Marxism and socialism, these were foreign, un-American ideas, right? And that they were imported from foreign countries, we should be afraid of them. And they played up the fact that they were not born in America at their trial. They played up the fact these were foreign guys, and that they played up that these posters had been put up calling for revenge, which these guys, there was no evidence they had even made these posters, but regardless, they ended up getting the death penalty for that. Because of the Haymarket incident here in Chicago, this is why Chicago is considered kind of a key place for the labor movement.
August Spies, presente. Presente. Adolf Fischer, presente. Albert Parsons, presente. Louis Ling, presente. George Engel, presente. All right.
Michael Schwab,
presente.
Oscar Neeb,
Presente.
Samuel Fielden,
Presente. All right. Now, just to be clear, those guys did not get the death penalty. Their sentences were commuted and they were eventually pardoned. Yeah. But yeah, there's some more important
I have
graves.
more about Haymarket
Oh, go ahead,
Square.
please. Go ahead.
Like what
Yeah.
David and I were talking about, how, you know, history is erased, you know, and you know, they try to hide it from us, the real people's history, and you're talking about them having it towards different days at the beginning of May. At least you guys got closer than we did here in Chicago, because we had it moved to, you know, you know, there's lots of labor holidays, but it wasn't an accident that they moved ours to the end of August or beginning of September, right? And call it Labor Day, which most people don't even like relate to. Like if you, in other countries, they call it Workers' Day, which everybody knows what a worker is. I talk to my students about this and I use it like, is there a holiday that everybody in the world, everywhere, almost every country celebrates that is, you know, no matter what continent, what culture, what religion, maybe New Year's? Is there anything else? And I'd like ask my students, because they're from all over the world. And, oh yeah, Labor Day, yeah, May 1st, May 1st, May 1st. I'm like, really? So most of the countries in the world celebrate May 1st as International Workers' Day. And here in the US, no, our Labor Day is not. Like, so why? What happened? Where, you know, and then they find out, when they find out it's Chicago, it's just a few miles away from here where it happened, and the story, you know, that's why I say lots of stuff about slavery, reconstruct, so many things in our history. It's like the fact that they hid it from us is almost more interesting than the actual story, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the follow-up question. Why? How come we are the only ones that don't know about this, right?